Did you turn it off in the Zoom program or on your
We're
computer?
recording now, guys. So good morning, everybody. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast Sunday morning celebration. And if there's anybody watching that's never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you, no matter what your divine path is. And this Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. And to open our service, Reverend Jenna Watkins is going to pray us in, and then one of our congregants, Ed Powers, is going to do a spiritual reading for us.
So you might want to just maybe gently close your eyes and take a nice deep in breath and release all the busyness of the day, any worries, any concerns. And breathe in that awareness that we are partnering with Spirit, that every step we take, we are walking hand in hand with that divine presence who is always with us, in us, acting as us. Let us be aware that there is nothing to be concerned with, for Spirit is always guiding and guarding and protecting us. I give thanks for this awareness that we recognize that we are one with Spirit, we are one in community, and that we are safe. We are whole and we are complete. And I give thanks this morning for everyone's presence, whether you be listening to the video or online. I give thanks for your presence, for your energy enlivens this time. It brings your love, your vision, your heart and soul to this community. And your presence is precious to every one of us. I know that the Divine Spirit moves through the wisdom of Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and he is guided to share something that each and every one of us needs to hear. Something that he says, a story he tells, an idea he presents. Something will touch our hearts, allowing us to recognize that we do walk with Spirit. We are in partnership with Spirit, and that our lives are good. Our lives are walking a divine path, and we are safe. I give thanks for everyone who makes this service happen, the technology, the people behind the scenes that make sure our technology works. I give thanks for your energy in making this time happen, for this time is precious, this time is sacred, and I give thanks that you are here and we have this moment. Thank you, Spirit, and so it is.
Good morning, everybody. I actually wrote this about a week ago when I was reading a book and it came to me, and Ron's subject for today is like absolutely perfect fit. Well, there's a theory that every cell in the universe has some level of consciousness. We can't perceive it, but then we can't even see them. And in fact, we can't even perceive each other's consciousness. Anyway, there's at least a strong argument that every living cell has consciousness and intelligence of its own. They have to perform certain functions intelligently in an ever-changing environment in order to survive. Consciousness provides that intelligence. When millions of cells get together to form a heart, for example, they intelligently do their own work, yet work together with a common purpose. Our heart has a single life and a purpose above the individual lives and survival of each cell. What drives this common purpose? Each heart has a combined consciousness that provides the overall purpose above the individual cell consciousnesses. When millions of individual intelligences work together, they form another single consciousness and intelligence for the group. Likewise, there are group intelligence for the lungs and the liver, etc. Now, looking at our whole body, billions of cells working together as one. We have a single life apart from our heart and lungs, etc., and apart from the cells that make them up. Again, individual consciousnesses working together form our consciousness. We are the intelligence that directs the work of our organs, consciously or subconsciously, unconsciously. Now, look at each human as an organ in God's life. Each animal and plant, each planet and star are organs of God. The single overall consciousness formed by billions of people, animals, and plants would be God's consciousness. Our unity, our overall purpose as the cells of God would be working together and supporting all life as the body and life of God. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Good morning again. So the title of my message this morning is Spirit as Our Partner. And I want to begin with a quote from Marianne Williamson, who kind of sums up what I want to say. She said, "You can let the same force that makes flowers grow and planets move, run, or," well, let me start over. "You can let the same force that makes flowers grow and planets move run your life, or you can do it yourself." You know, when we invite God into our lives, we can change the course of our entire life. When we take on God as a partner, we develop a relationship that's like no other relationship we'll ever have. We have a friend that we can't see or touch, and yet that friend is closer than our very breath. We have a power working for us in ways that we cannot even imagine. And all we have to do is say, "Okay, please come in and change my life." You know, recently I read a story about a young rabbinical student who says to his teacher, "You know, why, if God provides everything for us, did he make wheat grow from the ground instead of having bread grow right from the ground?" And the rabbi who was teaching the class said to him, "The reason is because God supplies what we need, but we must make the bread, and in this way we share as God's partners in creation." I really like that. That's why we share in creation. You know, you and I know you all know this, we have the power to create with spirit. And when we don't use that potential, we give up our power. Just as Marianne reminded us, we can consciously court this all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving presence and ask it to come into our lives. Or we can decide to go it alone. You know, the choice seems pretty obvious to me, and yet so often, and I know I still do this, so often we forget and we try to go it alone. So let's look at this from a couple of of different angles. Joel Goldsmith, one of the great New Thought writers, said that to him, the most comforting passage in the Bible was this: "My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you." And he said, you know, as long as we look to people and situations for peace, we are never going to have lasting peace, either in our lives or as a people. He said we can't put our reliance on form, meaning externals. He said we need to put our life and put our consciousness on that which created the form, meaning spirit. Every issue in life is determined not by external forces, but by our consciousness. And when we seek the allness of spirit, we have all we need for our personal unfoldment. And by doing our inner work, we become a conscious partner with spirit in conscious evolution. So think about this. All of God is present at every point in space and time, wherever God is. You know, it's really a difficult concept to focus on, but all of God is everywhere at once. And God doesn't move away. We do. You know, Meister Eckhart, the great philosopher, said, God is at home and we're in the far country. And all we could ever want is right here, right now. And all we need to do is accept it. Just open ourselves and accept it. And the accepting is mental. You know, in spirit, there's no lack and there's no limitation. We may have a consciousness of lack and a consciousness of limitation. And so that's what we experience, but that's not on God. That's on us. And you know, that's true, because God can never do for us anything that we don't accept. And everything God provides for us, it has to do through us. You know, and in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, it's written, "For where your treasure is, there will be your heart." And what that scripture means is, in our consciousness. The writer was speaking about our consciousness, about how we think and about how we feel. And you might ask, where do we start? And we start wherever we are. We have faith, and when we have faith, a way will be made. Jack Canfield said, "We don't need to see the whole staircase. We only need to see the first step." So let's look at some more. Michael Beckwith, in one of his books, talks about immature and mature wanting. And he says immature wanting is when we say, I want this, I want that. It's a wanting mindset. It says, those who die with the most toys wins. It operates from a poverty mindset, a mindset that says, I don't have enough. Then he goes on and he says, so what's a mature level of wanting? And he says a mature level of wanting is when we say, I want to know more of what I really am. I want to express my true nature of love, of joy, of compassion. And he said, in this mindset, we know everything we need to fulfill our highest purposes is right there within us. So I want to tell you a story. And it's a story about a high school teacher that when her class is near graduation. She wants to show them how much she admires them. And so she gives each one of her students a blue ribbon, and in gold on the ribbon, it's written, "Who I am makes a difference. Who I am makes a difference." And then she got the idea, when she thought about it some more, she gave each of the students 3 more of those ribbons. And she said, in the next week, I want you to go out and give these ribbons out and come back and tell me the story. So we're going to follow one student. One of the students got his ribbon, and he went to somebody who was a junior executive in a company in his town, and he gave the ribbon to this junior executive, and he said, "I just want to thank you because you helped me so much with doing some career planning." And he pinned the ribbon on his shirt. And then he gave the 2 other ribbons to this junior executive, and he said, "Would you give these out, and come back and tell me the story so I can report it to my class?" And the junior executive went to his boss, who was known as being kind of a crotchety, cranky guy. But he took the chance and he went to him and he told him the story, and he said, "I want to give you one of my ribbons because I admire you so much for being the creative genius that you are." And this boss was really touched. And the young man asked if he could pin it on, and the boss said yes. And then he gave the boss the last ribbon, and he said, "Would you go and give this to somebody and tell me the outcome?" And the boss said, "Sure." And he takes the last ribbon, and when he goes home, he calls his 14-year-old son in, and he tells his 14-year-old son the background, and he said, "I want to honor you." And he said, "I know sometimes I yell at you and I get on your case because you don't get good enough grades. And sometimes I get on your case because you don't clean your room. And there are times when I'm really busy and I don't give you as much time as I should. But I want you to know, I think you're a great kid and I love you." And this young boy started to sob. And he said, "Dad, earlier tonight, I wrote a letter to you and Mom explaining why I killed myself. I was going to commit suicide tonight because I thought you didn't care." Obviously, or naturally, they had a long discussion, and it changed this executive's life. He was never the same at home, and he was never the same at work. And for me, the point of this story is who you are. Like Michael Beckwith was talking about, who you are makes the difference, not what you are or what you have. And you know, when Becky and I had a center in Arizona, I told this story and we got the idea and we gave every congregant 3 ribbons that said what this ribbon said. And we asked them to go out and to do it. And during the next week, we had a meeting and we let people share. And we heard some amazing stories about what it did to people to get a simple blue ribbon that said, "Who you are makes a difference." Raymond Charles Barker was a contemporary of Ernest Holmes. And in one of his books, he writes that he said, when we say, "Be still and know that I am God. He said, what that means is, I am the potential. I am the creativity. I am the possibility. I am that which shall be. I am not that which was. And he goes on to explain what he means. And he said that people of wisdom measure themselves in terms of today and the future, while average people describe their lives in terms of the past. And he said, so go to a creative person and say to that creative person, tell me about your life. And they'll talk to you about the way of what they're doing now and what they expect to do in the future. They accept themselves for what they are, not what they were. So who you are and what you are is right now in this present, and you can become more of it. We're all trying to set the intention and the purpose to have good health, to have peace in our life, to have loving relationships. And we can have all of this because we have the ability to co-create the life we choose with spirit. Emmett Fox, I usually tell people he was a relative, but he wasn't. Emmett Fox was one of the great New Thought teachers, and I want to read to you something he wrote. He said, whatever enters your life is but the material expression of some belief in your own mind. The kind of body you have, the kind of home you have, the kind of work you do, the kind of people you meet, all are conditioned by and correspond to the deepest mental concepts that you have. So I want to give you two examples of what he's talking about. And the first one is from a lady named Lynn Grabhorn. And she describes in her book, she said that at some point in her life, she moved to Central California. And she had a friend who lived there named Tom, who was a real estate broker. And so he encouraged her to get her license, and she did. And Tom taught her, and Tom tutored her. And if you know anything about Central California, it's a really rich area. And so she described how at one point, after she felt confident going on her own, she showed a ranch to somebody, a large ranch overlooking the Big Sur. And it was worth millions of dollars, millions. And she said, if she sold that, her commission, listen to this, her commission for that one sale would have been more money than she made in her entire preceding life. So you can guess it must have been huge. And she got the buyer together with the seller. They came together, and it was a done deal. And she panicked. And she said, as the time got closer and closer to closing, everybody was happy, and she was terrified. She was a nervous wreck. And on the day it was going to close, the seller found the loophole. The buyer found the loophole and opted out of the sale. And she said the same thing happened to her 2 more times. And so she went to Tom and she said, I can't handle this pressure. I got to stop doing this. And this is what Tom said to her. He said to her, sweetie, you blew them away with your fears. You gotta feel those little suckers closing. You gotta feel yourself out there shaking hands with everybody. You gotta feel yourself out there celebrating. You gotta know it's gonna work, or trust me, it never will. If you can't feel it happening, it won't. And she said years later, she realized what he meant, that you have to feel your desires into becoming, into being. So I had read this story before, and for some reason, when I read it this week, it reminded me of something that happened to Becky. And when I told her, she doesn't remember this. Becky does not remember this happening. But actually, I think it's when Becky and I were early on in our marriage, Becky worked for a furniture dealership. And somehow she got a client that wanted to make a huge order. I mean, a huge order. And it wasn't as big as Lynn Grabhorn's, but when Becky started to figure it out, it would have meant more than an entire year's salary. The commission on this sale would have meant more, she would have made more money than her entire salary and other commissions for the entire year. And this woman approached her on a Friday, and Becky spent Friday night, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday working on this. And here's what I remember. Every time she took a break, what we would talk about is, do you think this is really going to work? Yeah, I don't know. You think she's going to back out? She might back out. Or her boss's name was Tom also. I wonder if Tom will try to jip me out of the commission. You think you'll really pay me a commission this big? We never really got into how wonderful the sale would be. We were more in fear that the lady would back out or that Tom wouldn't honor Becky's commission agreement with him. Monday morning, Becky called up, gave the lady all the information, and Monday afternoon, she backed out of the deal. You got to feel what your desires are if you want to manifest them. Ernest Holmes wrote, "We have a power within us, a power that is greater than anything we shall ever contact in the outer, a power that can overcome every obstacle in our life and set us safe, satisfied, and at peace, healed, prosperous, and in a new light and in a new life." I would just close by saying to you, sometime today, sometime this afternoon, take a moment and look at the sun, or maybe this evening, look at the moon, look at a flower, or maybe go out and look at the ocean and remember that the power that created all of this awaits your call to join in the creation of a masterpiece that you can call your life. Thank you for being here this morning. God bless you and have a blessed week.